Alright, so hey guys, so welcome to another Warframe video, and today I want to talk a little bit about a Harpak Riven that I had received as a gift, and since I never did a quick look video for the Harpak, we're going to talk a little bit about the weapon as well. So, the Riven is called Harpak Satitis. What a wonderful name, is it not? And it was given to me by Mr. the No Life King, so thank you very much my good man, you are awesome. Now, the Harpak is a relatively cheap Mastery Rank 7 burst rifle that you can get from the market. Most of the damage on the Harpak comes in the form of puncture. It has a pretty solid 20% crit chance with an above average 2.3 times crit multiplier and a solid 17% status chance. And other than that, the weapon is pretty damn accurate. It can fire up to 6 rounds per second with 45 rounds in the magazine and a 2-second reload. However, the Harpak also has a secondary fire mode, and that is referred to as the Harpoon. And this, in terms of stats at least, just bumps up the damage and tilts it more towards impact, so it's not just pure puncture basically, and it bumps up the crit chance as well. So we have a primary fire that fires a swift 3-round burst that can pin enemies to walls, and a secondary fire that will drag a single enemy towards you. And the only real reason that I use the Harpoon is to just drag scorpions and ancients while screaming, "This is how it feels!" and that's pretty much it. Now, the build I'm using on the Harpak is relatively cheap, even though I'm using a Riven, so it's a 3-Forma setup where I've added 2 Vs and a Forma for the Riven, which in this case was a D. And the build is using Serration for damage, Split Chamber for multi-shot, Point Strike and Argent Scope for crit chance, then the Riven, Harpak Satitis, which has an insane amount of crit damage and a ton of multi-shot as well. Then I actually ended up going with Vital Sense, which results in a 9 times crit multiplier, which is absolutely insane, and I topped it all off with Malignant Force and High Voltage for corrosive. And this is kind of like a big single target focus, but if you want a more AoE focused setup or you're fighting the Corpus, I would recommend this one, which is Malignant Force and Thermite rounds for gas and Hammer Shot for critical damage and status chance. And if you want to use the Harpak but you don't have a Riven for it, just put on Thermite rounds for the extra heat damage and status chance. Now, as you can see, this setup is actually quite good, and it only takes about 2 or 3 bursts to take down even level 100 heavily armored Grineer. And even though a lot of that is due to the very strong Riven, the weapon is actually fairly strong even without a Riven, and I was pretty amazed at how much damage it can do. And it will just straight up trash sortie level enemies in a very fun way as well, because the balls have travel time, which I personally like, though it can be seen as a downside by some people, and pinning enemies to walls is always fun. The only sort of bummer with this weapon is how high the percentage of the puncture damage is, because it just really likes proccing puncture and it kind of overshadows the elemental procs. But that's mostly because puncture is just not a really good proc, it just reduces the damage the enemies do, which doesn't matter if you kill them within a burst or 2. So yeah, the Harpak turned out to be a lot more fun than I thought it was going to. I genuinely had a lot of fun playing around with this because it's just a great feeling weapon. It's kind of like a burst version of the Boltor that also has this janky Harpoon. And I just quickly want to mention this before I forget about it, it also has a pretty cool looking reload animation. So I would very much recommend you give the Harpak a shot, because even though I am using a Riven now, I did play around with it without a Riven and it was still a lot of fun and did good damage. I just, for whatever reason, never tried it out, but it turns out it's actually quite great. So once again, I would very much recommend you give the Harpak a shot because it's quite good, especially if you have a Riven, which can just turn it into a sortie melting monstrosity. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.
Sons and daughters, by the heart of who we are, making peace to build a future strong.